Hello and welcome to the 2.12 and 2.17 project showcase. Before even I started, as you can see, three types of lighting for 4 different lights in total. It has a point light, a directional light, and it has a spotlight, and it has 2 of the spotlights, one for each of the headlights. So starting off, one of the things we notice is the aspect ratio. I made the window scalable and in the 16:9 aspect ratio. The camera, there is one main camera which follows the player and rotates around it, and also likes, because of using mixing that I will show later, the camera comes close and further away depending on the player's speed. There are quite a few models. The one that you've noticed already: cones, roadblocks, the car, the wheels, the truck, the ground. Now you can see there's a different camera. The one that was before was the one that followed player movement. The one after that was just one that was in front of the car. This one is a cinematic one that just in the middle follows the player. Here's a free moving camera which you move with the mouse, and you can see animated water. And going back to the game from the main view, you have the lights which can be switched on and off, and the debug mode, which shows all the colliders of all the different objects if they're available. So there are 4 types of colliders: sphere, box, plane, and another box for OBBs. The game also includes rotational motion on impact based off the impulse. Hello, in the later part, explanation of the lighting and the game itself. So starting with the lighting, directional light is very similar to point light, except it doesn't take a position and lights everything in the room. The point light has one position, and in case of my game it also lights everything because it doesn't have a drop-off. I have a third type of lighting, which is the spotlight, which uses a position, direction, 2 angles, which is the inner and outer cutoff, and it takes in the fragment position. I use the structure for the light. Probably should be doing 3 different ones for each different type of light, but which one of them, even if they don't use them, they take the ambient color, diffuse color, specular color, the coordinates, which is the position, direction of the light, obviously, cutoff, and outer cutoff is the theta and the phi. Linear and quadratic are just constants that are used to calculate this drop-off right here. So basically, the further you have your object, your fragment, less light it will get from that source. So this is an example of one of the 3 functions. All of them are very similar to this. So they get a ambient. They then calculate the diffuse light using the direction of the fragment. Then it clamps it, and then it multiplies with the value of the light itself, and this is diffuse. For specular, it's something similar, it's opposite of the light, and then we use that to calculate the dot product of that to the camera, because we want it to shine back at us, into our eyes, into the camera. Multiply that with the values of the light itself, we get the specular, and then we calculate using this the drop-off, the fallout. We calculate theta, epsilon, which is phi, and we clamp it between theta and the outer cutoff. So basically, if it's outside of the range, we don't give it any values. If it's inside the range, we can give it a maximum value of 1. Then we multiply the ambient, diffuse, and specular with this drop-off that we just calculated. I do a bit different for the specular because I like it more if it's added instead of multiplied. It gives it more emphasis. And all of the lights, you can see that result is plus added. So we combine all the lights for each one of the objects when it's calculated. The result of the lighting is calculated. I multiply it with the texture itself, and then I multiply it with each of the values of the material of the set object, and find the mean value, basically all of them. So the waves move constantly, are constantly updated, and using this sine and cosine, so it oscillates between 0.1 and minus 0.1, and it gives it the height of the wave. So the last part will be calculating the position of the camera and how it moves and how it's animated. Basically what it does, it gets the player's position, then the forward vector, so basically what it's looking at, and it multiplies it by some values to get it either behind or in front of the car. And then using the GLM mix function, basically what it does, using this value, so 0.115, basically in the steps of 1 divided by this value, it will try to match from the previous position to the new position. And basically the bigger the change, the bigger lag it will have. That's why we can see that when we go faster, the camera lags more behind the orientation of the car. I added on minus it obviously for the left and right. Then calculate the length using those two angles and multiply it by the distance that I also calculated before. So basically what it does, left headlight, right headlight, gives basically the distance from the center of the car to that headlight. Then I pass that value into the fragment shader. The light actually comes from within the camera, so I need to move it just a little bit up when the car moves, and just a little bit to the right or left.